This is an encore presentation of the EntreMusician. Hey, peace and blessings to you. My name is Jerry B. I am the EntreMusician, and so are you. I gotta tell you, this is the conversation I've always wanted to have ever since we began doing interviews here at the EntreMusician. Because not only am I a fan of this gentleman right here, I consider myself to be a student because of his impeccable production, because of the longevity of his career, and with him being a giant in the industry, he still has time to take calls from little guys like me. I am so grateful for Mr. Bob Baldwin. What's happening, sir?
Bro, that's quite an introduction, man. Thank you, man. How you feeling today?
I'm doing absolutely excellent, as I know you are.
Bro, listen, I'm still here. I'm still alive. I'm still playing music. I woke up this morning and I felt all my limbs, so I'm totally 100%.
Absolutely. You know, we have a lot to talk about. I mean, I am just in awe of your stellar career, 30 years in the business, 25 albums and counting. We're going to talk about all of that. Before we go on, man, I want to make sure that we give props where they are due, and that's to dedicate this episode to the memory of both of our friend, the late, great, incredible Kim Hines, sound man extraordinaire.
Absolutely. I met Kim, 20 years ago when I was on the road with Marion.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just a warm-spirited brother, but the sound he was getting out of a soundboard was out of this world, and I just missed that he left us so soon, man. It was a good brother.
Absolutely, great friend, and was sound man for us as well, and honorary percussionist. So he'd set up the sound system for our band, and then he'd set his congos up.
Those two things.
And hang out. And it was so cool of you. I believe you and Marion attended his funeral services, man, here in Youngstown, Ohio. So peace and blessings to him and his family.
Absolutely, man. Good brother. Man, he definitely somebody I miss. We used to talk all the time. Even while he was sick, we were on the phone, talking every week or so, just checking up on him, man, because I knew how severe his illness was, and just gone too soon.
Absolutely. And God bless Lynn, who took care of him. I mean, I attended their wedding, and Ken had already been diagnosed at that time. And for that brother to get up out of his wheelchair and walk to his bride, I'll never forget it. Excellent.
Yeah, that was amazing. I didn't see that, but I know that was definitely a picture to behold.
Without fail. So tell me about you. There's so many things to talk about, Bob. If we were to go down your extensive discography, we would be here into next Wednesday sometime. What I want to do, though, is I know that you have great love and respect for your father. Your dad was your entrance into the music industry?
Yes, my father was a jazz pianist. He wasn't professional, but he was an amazing musician.
Mm-hmm.
And even he was working full time as an engineer. So he was an engineer by day, and musician by night. So he was using, as he would say, both sides of his brain, the analytical and the creative. And he did them quite well. He used to draw schematic designs of TV sets by hand.
Wow. And
he used to also tune his own piano. I need to throw that in there. But when I was when he was actively working around where he lived, he was just north of New York City in Westchester County. Two bass players that he absolutely adored working with. One was Art Davis, who was the last known bass player for John Coltrane before he passed.
I see.
And also Keter Betts, who was who was actually married to Ella Fitzgerald at the time. But they used to do duet gigs together all the time because they all lived in the area. That area in Westchester County has some pretty rich history. Hugh Masekela moved up there in the 60s when he escaped apartheid. Cab Calloway lived up there. Frank Foster, who directed the Duke Ellington Orchestra, lived up there. So there was a lot of music. And Atlantic Star lived in Greenburgh, New York as well. And
Wow.
they're like the jewels of the county. So we come from a nice, rich county of music. But Dad taught me when I was 6 years old how to play.
Mm-hmm.
Have all this great jazz in his archives. He was playing Miles Davis and Herbie Hancock and Quincy Jones and Bud Powell, and his favorite piano player was Oscar Peterson.
Mm.
So I listened to a lot of Oscar Peterson at age 5 years old when I was going to kindergarten, and that brother played so incredible. I didn't even want to play piano.
I could dig it.
He almost made me quit. I said, Dad, does he have 4 hands? No, son, he has 2. Oh, okay. My mind. So so here I am, kindergarten, listening to all this music, but
yeah.
he planted the seed.
Wow. You say something in your book, which we'll talk about in another episode, but you talked about him lifting the 500-pound piano onto the station wagon?
With his friends, yes. The piano was on the top floor of the house, and you had to go down, I believe it was 7 stairs to the outside, and another 4 stairs to go down the stairs to the driveway.
Wow.
So he had this gig in not too far away from where he lived. So he went to go test the piano out the day before, and the piano was out of tune, and there was some keys missing, and it was just like, I can't use this piano. Mm. And of course, where are you going to rent a piano a day before? You're not going to do it because it's just a little restaurant gig. So he decided that he was going to go home that night with his friends, 2 of his friends. They lifted the piano, and it was a upright piano. Mm-hmm. Lifted the piano down the stairs, put it on the station wagon, drove off to the venue. And then at the venue, there was another probably 10 stairs to go into the venue. It was a restaurant. So the 3 of them proceeded to bring the piano up these stairs and into the restaurant. And then if that wasn't enough, he sat there and tuned it for an hour to make sure it was right.
My God.
And I should also add, this is like 1971-ish. I think he's paying this guy about $120 gig. And so I laugh when I hear people saying, "Oh, the gig pays $120 and you're playing all night." I was like, man, that was 50 years ago. Hush.
Right. That's right.
It blows my mind when I see musicians working for $100 a night and, working all night. It's like, man, you don't even know. Right. I think the cost of living has, quadrupled and then some since the 70s. Absolutely. So why are you making the same amount of money?
That's absolutely right. And boy, I really don't want to get into the book right now, but you pushed the button. I have to say this because you have a section in there for musicians uniting. And if a musician takes a stand in a certain venue and says, well, we're not going to play for that, you got 50 other bands, 50 other musicians that come in and play for less. And so there is no unity. There's no establishment.
And it devalues every musician in that area because of that. And I don't know why musicians insist on doing it. They say they want to get exposed, but there are better ways to get exposed.
True. And you have to be really, really creative about it, but you can set yourself apart and you can get the exposure that you need without being exploited.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And I think, here it is 2019, they're still doing this. I don't know if they'll ever get the message, unfortunately. There'll always be someone out there that'll want to do the gig and, be paid less because they think playing in front of XYZ people is the thing to do. But until artists and musicians start to value themselves more, that problem will never go away.
It's amazing. So what do you let's just dig into that a little bit. What do you think that is? Is that has to be some psychology on self-esteem then? Of course, everybody is not a Stevie Wonder, or you're not this incredible musician like an Oscar Peterson, but you bring something unique to the table that's marketable. Mm-hmm. And why not concentrate on that? Why do you think there's such a disconnect between I need to play in front of these people and, hey, I have value to share with these people?
I think it's probably more the fact that people love music so much, musicians love music so much that they'll play at any cost, and they don't place a value on, you know, their artistry. They don't realize that if you're playing in a restaurant, which people are paying money to eat and drink, and the restaurant is using money to pay their employees, obviously there's a commerce piece involved. So for you to be in a venue that's generating commerce, and then you're not conscious of it, you're not placing a value on the fact that not only are you a musician, if you're good, you become a draw to other people, thereby making you a marketing haven of sorts. It could be a small marketing haven, but you're still a draw because you've got talent. And so your draw brings people to a venue where people spend money and eat and drink. And so you're bringing those people in from your following, but somehow it never works out where the restaurant says, oh, you know, we've got a piece of revenue from these people that you brought in. Here's 10%. That never happens.
Ever.
You're already shortchanging yourself on that, and then on the front end, you're not paying yourself properly. So you're getting, unfortunately.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
So now, with respect to having 30 plus years in the industry, you've taken all the knocks, you've taken the exposure knocks, you've learned a lot of lessons, but there has to be a central key. What would you share with the person, the EntreMusician who's just getting in the door? And I know you have to encapsulate that, but you're looking back in the rearview mirror going, here's a path to take that you won't have to take all the knocks that I did.
Yeah, well, part of that, if they read the book, they could probably avoid about half the knocks, because I've taken quite a few lumps on the head, as my dad would say. But people have to realize that this is a marathon and not a sprint. Mm-hmm. And I think until they realize that it's not a quick run. You know, some people have survived off of one song, and that's cool, and I applaud those. But for the greater part of the industry, you have to develop a body of work that carries you from one decade to the next. And of course, you got to keep your skill set up as much as possible. You know, so it's a marathon, not a sprint. You know, I was on Wikipedia the other day trying to accurately figure out how many records I've released. I think I'm up to 30 now, and I've had 13 record deals. So I've had more record deals than most people have had releases. So I've seen enough contracts. I've seen the ups and downs of the business. I've seen labels go out of business. I've seen cats go to jail. I've seen all kinds of stuff within this industry. But it comes down to having the fortitude to go through it over a long period of time, as opposed to just relying on one particular thing to push you over the top.
You make me ask about 3 questions from that statement. Number one, with the 13 record deals, you've run the gamut of being on the huge major Atlantic and many indies and distributorships, partnerships in between. Right. What do you figure was your best platform for you? You know, what was that period where you thought this is the perfect arrangement?
You know, when I came in on the scene, in 1988, I was selected by Roberta Flack as the Sony Innovators Award winner. It was an amateur music contest. 300 applicants submitted their music unsigned to labels. In fact, one of the groups that was also pitching was a group called Straight Ahead out of Detroit, which at that time had 2 fantastic artists, Regina Carter and Althea Renee.
Wow.
Both are amazing artists in their own right. So I was one of the finalists with them, and Roberta Flack selected me as the award winner. So my first record deal was with Atlantic Jazz, and that put me on a really nice platform. I was on the label with Bobby Lyle and Gerald Albright and Paul Jackson Jr. And a gentleman named Hiram Bullock who passed away.
Yeah, guitarist.
Yeah, amazing
Huge.
Guitarist.
Huge,
yeah,
player.
Man, killer. So that was, you know, it was nice to be on that platform for a while. But then after a while, you realize that after you do the math and do the contracts and you look at all the semantics behind a record deal, you realize at that point you don't own the material that you're putting out. So I began to, question, the validity of having a, being signed to a major. And being signed to a major has its ups because it puts you on a different platform to be heard. It puts you in certain kinds of venues. You might get a different pay scale, and all that is cool. But when it's all said and done, when the deal is over and they kick you out the house, you don't own the house that you built. So you become a rented artist, and you're renting the music that you created. So I decided that at some point I was just going to create the music and own it on the back end and make a larger percentage of sale per unit, which was the key. And in terms of longevity, that is also has been the key to being in this business over 5 decades now.
So it's not the fast track, but it's the length of time. And
absolutely.
That gets you in the end. It's making sure you own your masters.
Yeah, because if you don't, then all you're going to be relying on is publishing, and publishing right now is taking a hit because nobody's buying, everybody's
Correct.
Streaming.
Correct.
Everybody's stealing it on YouTube.
Correct.
Correct. So it really comes down to if you don't own your masters and you're not generating any money from that, the only thing you have left to do is to tour. And so what happens if you can't play anymore?
Right.
What are you going to do then?
Correct.
Now you're really stuck out there. So I try to look at things, through a long-term prism. And, that's been my conclusion so far. It's just the marathon piece is very important that people understand where you want to be in 10, 20, 30, 40 years. What do you want to own? What do you want to pass on to your family as a legacy? You can't pass on a gig to your kids, to your grandkids, to your nieces and nephews. Because once you stop doing the gig, the money stops. Once you're in the ground, you have nothing to pass on to your family.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. You tell a story in the book about, and the book, by the way, is called "You Better Ask Somebody." Right.
Yes, you better.
But you tell a story about a gentleman who was further along in his career than you, yet did not own any masters at all. And this guy had garnered great fame, great name appeal, but no money because all he could do at the end of his career was tour.
Yeah, that was when I learned deeper about that, it was a very unfortunate find. And that was part of the reason why I quested to become an independent artist. I won't name that artist. He's a
sure
amazing musician.
Understood.
It broke my heart when I heard the story.
Mm-hmm.
But it told me, it gave me a wake up call. Like, this is where you don't want to be. Because if that was the position with somebody who had that kind of fame and fortune, where did that leave me?
Correct.
Who had not even a smidgen of that popularity.
No, I understand.
Thankfully, I heeded the warning, and from that point forth, which the really turning point was BobBaldwin.com in 2000, where I chose to own the masters. There was a record before that called "Welcome to the Games," but it never went national. So the first national record was BobBaldwin.com, and that was the one that, in fact, when I used the name BobBaldwin.com, I was the third in line to use my name as an artist, a self-named website. Jethro Tull was the other one, and Fatburger was the one. Was the second one, but Jethro Tull was the first. I think he did it in 1996 or 97, and he was one of the first artists to sell his music on his own website.
Wow.
So
smart.
Yeah. So BobBaldwin.com served a lot of good purposes because when a DJ would mention the name of the record, they would also promote my website. And so I got a lot of hits that way. Free. Yeah. It was like free advertising.
Right.
But now, iTunes won't let you put a .com on a record title anymore because they got wind of it. Because they don't want you promoting your site for free. So, gangsters run deep, brother.
Gangsters run deep, man, and platform. Well, golly, again, we may have to do like 7 or 8 different episodes because, I mean, there's so much there. When let me just say this, Bob, because you can correct me and you can tweak what I'm saying, because in the days where the major labels were king, there was amount of gangster going on, but they tricked you after the Napster, after the liberty of the independent artists. Then all of the gangsters start saying, hey, here's a way we can help you, boom, 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 and then it's all pay for play. So nothing really changed in the game.
Well, the gangsters are still there. They just
changed the name of it.
Yeah, they just position themselves in a different seat, but you know, they still gangsters, man. They ain't never gonna change. Music business got some issues, brother. It's unregulated. I mean, that's the problem.
Right.
It's like the wild, wild west. People can do whatever they want to do, and you know, as long as they're not violating any FCC rules, they get away with murder. You know that, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. But they've hurt themselves. In fact, I will even go as far as to say that the people that were running the business, were running the industry, whoever they are, they failed to do something very important that most businesses wouldn't even think of doing. Like when you get a piece of software from, I remember the computer store, Comp USA, which was big in New York on the East Coast, where you would buy, you remember you used to go to the store and buy a big old box that had like a disk of software in it. And then you take it home, put it in your computer, and you had to punch in this, 8,000 digit code. And that code can never be used on any other computer except yours. Why didn't they apply that knowledge to the MP3? So you put out an MP3 that's not copy protected, and then everybody is stealing it. And Napster came in and just took it to a new level. $10 a month, you could download 8,000 tunes.
Amen. Right. So
imagine downloading over a year. You downloading. Let's just say, for instance, you download 800 albums in an entire calendar year. It costs you maybe $120 to, for the full download. Right. But you got $8,000 worth of revenue. I mean, you got $8,000 worth of merchandise that you paid $120 for. That means somebody's not getting paid.
That's what that means exactly.
You just spent $120 for $8,000. You can't go anywhere in this country and buy something that's worth $8,000 for $120 unless it's illegal. So the people that ran this industry are knuckleheads.
Absolutely.
They should have caught that. And when they didn't catch that, that was the beginning of the end. And then, of course, iTunes came in the mid-2000s, and they're like, okay, they wanted to partner up with the labels. Once again, the labels like, nah, this MP3 thing gonna fly.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, Apple becomes one of the biggest corporations in the world.
Yes. But the trick to Apple was not just the monetization of music or lack thereof. It was the fact that they were selling the iPod.
Yeah, they were selling hardware. That's correct. Yeah, the iPod and the iPad. And the computers. And they created a monster. But they sold billions of dollars of downloads. They made money on all the way around. And eventually the labels got hip to it, but it was too late by then.
Sure. Well, I would prefer a download, and this might seem archaic, but I would prefer a download than the streaming. That's just Jerry. My personal opinion is, at least I got the 99 cent, yo.
Yeah, you're right. I don't mind the MP3. What I don't like about the MP3 is the sound. I wish they just came up with a cleaner version of a download, like a 24-bit wave. If you could download 24-bit waves, that sounds just as good as the CD.
Sure, absolutely.
The MP3s, I know why they did it, because they had to strip down the frequencies in order to shrink the file size, and as a result, sound gets compromised. Like the drums sound swishy.
Right.
I'm sure as a drummer, you're like, man, I did not spend all this money mixing my record, buying all this equipment so you could make my drum sound swishy.
Exactly.
Everything that has a metallic sound has this weird kind of kind of vibe to it, cymbals and stuff.
That's
You
right.
know, so if they had just come out the gate with a copy protected download of a high res file, that would have saved the industry.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, the so-called people at the top who call themselves smart and executives and wear suits and have these fancy desks and everything, they don't know what they're talking about. They fell asleep at the wheel.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's my truth. I'm sticking to it.
No, that's on point. That's absolutely right. So, we haven't talked about your career at all, right?
Nah, we don't need to talk about it.
But how do you?
That's boring compared to this stuff. I mean, these are the things you got to think about while you're having a career.
Exactly.
If you don't, you'd be like, well, why am I taking a hit here? It was because all of these other factors that are working against you. Mm-hmm. So in between all that, I'm sitting here trying to create music and put music out. So, but you got to understand all the little, nuances that are going on while you're trying to make a nice record.
So that's the priority of planning what type of career you want to have. Because if you're just walking in the door to this, there is so much against you that you really have to have some guts. You have to have some testicles, excuse my expression, in order to say, yo, this is why I'm here. Mm-hmm. And in addition to what we just talked about 5 minutes ago with other musicians who will undercut you for the gig down the street, mm-hmm. because that brother is not paying you. In fact, there's some venues that want you to pay to be on their stage.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's the ultimate insult. I mean, if you're renting the venue, that's one thing, but if you're just paying just to be on stage, that's nonsense.
It's crazy.
If I'm paying the venue, I'm gonna hold the door, the gate, the whole thing. I'm gonna promote the whole thing. But exactly. Most restaurants and venues don't want to play that game.
Right. It's amazing. All right. Hey, let's flip the script. Tell us about New Urban Jazz. How'd you get the time, man, to invest in such a great program?
Well, let me tell you how it started. First of all, I caught the radio bug when I was in college. And then I went to New York City at a radio station, which was at #1 in the country at the time, WBLS, which was
Frankie Crocker, man.
Frankie Crocker. I was there. I was interning at the station when he was there, so I got a chance to actually watch him do his magic, man. I watched him for a number of months, and I interned with a lady named Pat Prescott, and Pat Prescott is now in LA working at the Wave, but at the time, I was interning at WLIB WBLS, which was owned by Percy Sutton. Percy Sutton was former Manhattan borough president, but he was also a Tuskegee Airman, and my stepfather and him were good friends. So for those who don't know about the Tuskegee Airmen, these are the cats that were in the service, and they were basically backing some of the other planes, which were flown by white pilots, and they had a undefeated record in terms of protecting the pilots of the Air Force.
Correct.
But the problem was that when they came home and they knew how to fly, they had the same skill set. When they came home, they could not get commercial airline gigs. They couldn't be pilots for commercial airlines. They couldn't work for Delta. They couldn't work for Continental or whoever. And so, but these cats were all very brilliant, and a lot of them just went up and developed stuff. My stepfather was a engineer and a lawyer. That's how deep he was. Mm-hmm. Percy Sutton went on to become the Manhattan Borough president, and then he ended up being one of the first Black radio station owners at WBLS, WLIB, inner city broadcasting. So I was a part of that whole vibe back in the late 70s and early 80s, and then got my first job at 1010 Winds, which was a news station, and I was writing news copy for them for several years. So I caught the bug in college, and I never strayed away too far from radio. I always dug what radio was able to do, and eventually the synergy between radio and my career as an artist was a perfect marriage. In 2005 I helped upstart a smooth jazz station in Bermuda. think it was called K Jazz. And they're not around anymore. I think they got into like reggae now. But I helped, introduce smooth jazz to the island of Bermuda. And I did some programming down in Jacksonville. But back to CD 101.9, which was the largest smooth jazz station in the country at the time. I was driving up the New Jersey Turnpike. I'm gonna give you the exact date too. February 8th, 2008.
Wow, my birthday.
Wow, look at that. I'm driving up the highway, and I get a text. I think I was driving up from DC or something. I get a text from an anonymous source, and they say, "We're going into a meeting at CD 101.9 at 4 p.m., and I think they're going to flip the format." I was like, I almost stopped on the highway. I was like, whoever this is, they need to stop playing. It was anonymous. So I'm sitting here waiting. This is about 2:30. So at 4 o'clock, maybe about 15 minutes to 4 o'clock, I get another text, and they say, CD 101 is flipping to rock. And at 4 o'clock, I can't exactly remember who they played. It was probably Kenny G or Grover. They went from that to like Led Zeppelin.
Just like that. Zoom.
Unannounced. They didn't even say goodbye. They didn't say see you later, kiss my butt, nothing. They just like, bye. They just turn the lights out over here, turn the lights out over here. I was like, this is cold-blooded. But they had it coming because they were putting up this format called New York Chill, and it was a disaster. There was a bunch of it was like a DJ lounge type music they were doing in New York. They angered all the people in Connecticut and New Jersey that were listening to the station, and the music wasn't any good. They took all the core cats off the radio. It took Nita Baker and George Benson and all the familiar names. They replaced it with like I can't even pronounce some of the names. But this guy, it was just like grooves. Yeah. And so like 65% of the listenership left. They completely bailed, and they never recovered. And in 2008, they finally had to like flip it. So that's when I started developing new urban jazz. I was working at CLK at the time in Atlanta, and I had a gig also at a commercial station doing smooth in Atlanta, WJZZ, which is a Radio 1 property. And so in October of 2008 is when I launched New Urban Jazz, and I wanted to be music that was a fusion of contemporary jazz with a little urban and some Brazilians and some world music. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing it weekly since October 1st, and I haven't missed a show yet. So I think I'm on number 553 or something like that in a row.
That's huge, man. For you,
it's about 3 or 4 hours a week that I spend doing it, and then I launch it to several properties. We're on like 45 stations now. God willing, we may pick up a station in Atlanta soon, and also the Virgin Islands sometime at the end of the year. And we got about 500,000 people listening weekly.
That's excellent.
Yeah, so it's been a blessing, and it's allowed me also to use the platform to play independent artists that wouldn't normally get spins at different stations. So it's becoming a nice venue piece for new artists. It's a great place to launch new artists and also new music.
Here's a story from 2006, wow. Bob.
Tell me.
I don't know if you remember this, man. This is summer of 2006, Capital Jazz Fest finalists. Our band Sound Doctrine was one of the finalists with the incredible Reagan Whiteside. Okay? Reagan, with that beautiful flute of hers, brought home the gold. I mean, she was like
wasn't Ken Ford on that contest as well?
That's exactly right. Kirk Whalum was one of the judges. Foreplay was down there. It was a good year. So I think we came in like, I don't know, 4th or something like that. It wasn't number 1. Anyway, long story short was the fact that, we went home and we gave mad props to Reagan because she absolutely deserved it. She blew her head off. It was really good. And so through Kim, we were able to get in contact with you because a brother who was in the band wrote this slamming song called Smallmouth Bass. Yeah. And he says, Bob would like to do a remix of that. So we drove down to New York. I think we were in New Rochelle.
Yonkers.
Yeah, Yonkers. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Me and Keith McKelly, who was the sax player at the time, and a big, tall gentleman comes running out, yo, Jerry B, yo, Jerry B. It's Dennis Johnson. Didn't know, Dennis very well, but showed us a lot of love. You came through and just blessed us. Blessed us, helped us to get on Smooth Jazz Radio with that cut, man. Generous.
Nice.
Bob Baldwin. But here's another thing about Baldwin. If you want to know the truth, let me rephrase that. If you don't want to know the truth, don't ask him. Because he's going to give you the straight up truth. Because there were mixes that I sent him, and he said, what's wrong with those horns? Other mixes I sent him, he said, why are those hi-hats like that? This brother would tell you the TRUTH if you want to hear it.
I don't even remember that, man. So now
I remember. Because I'm on the other line going,
Do we eventually get it right?
Yeah, we had to. We couldn't put it out. If Bob said fix the horns, you got to fix the horns.
10 years later, man, you don't want to be listening to something like, man, I should have fixed those horns. Because
you told me. I think you used the name till you said, look, man, that's too John P. Key-ish. Get rid of that.
Oh, yeah, the church horns. Yes. Yeah, you had them old church horns up in there. Them church horns from like the Core keyboard. They sounded great. They just don't fly smooth. They just don't.
You see what I mean? So if you want to know the truth, you better ask Bob. And that's why we're here in this episode, because he wrote this incredible ebook. He's redoing it. It's going to be out, the hard copy, 2019. I'm reserving my copy. It's called You Better Ask Somebody. Stand on top of your career in this friggin' music business.
That's right, friggin'.
That's right. Now, Bob, who is this book for, and what caused you to write it? What was the impetus of you writing this book?
It was a combination of experiences that I've had in the business, potholes I didn't want other people to, run into. It's like, here's the pothole. I'm telling you right now, don't go down this street and make a left, because there is a pothole in the third block on the left. It's gonna blow your tire out.
Word.
I try to give people roadmaps as to where not to go. Of course, I could probably write 10 other chapters of some other things they shouldn't be doing, but I wanted to be able to give people a roadmap, especially new aspiring artists, to get that knowledge, so they can avoid the potholes. Because when you run into too many potholes, in some cases you get stuck, and when you get stuck, then you're not able to create and put the gift out, put the music out that you're trying to put out, because you got all these side shows and distractions. Distractions, I think, is what kills people's careers. I mean, I've seen people run into roadblocks, and then they just like bail out. They don't even finish their path. But I always said, if you got a gift, man, you gotta use it, to the glory. Yeah. You gotta use it. I use the gift to bless people. I use the information to help people out, man. Because that's, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, man.
Absolutely. Well, you're a generous spirit, as I just said, and so this book is your experiences and how generous you are with sharing from your personal stories and helping us out of these roadblocks. There are 22 chapters in this book, but I picked 3 that I want you to kind of delve into a little bit. The first one being the Sidemen, because most of us are, even when we are leaders of our own band, you got to get the gig. You're going to play drums for somebody else. You're going to be a sideman at some point. So I want you to talk about, not only your experience as a sideman, but advice that, since you are that guitar player, it's not your band. This is how you should approach your position. This is what to look out for.
Well, I mean, if you're a sideman in someone else's band, you should, there's a role that you're going to play. And the role is that you're going to do whatever you have to do to support the main artist, the artist who's also paying you. So you have to take a back seat. You have to just chill out, be humble, learn the music, and just really be a support system for that artist. That's always the way it's been for me in terms of doing sideman work. I've worked I worked with Will Downing briefly. I worked with Marion Meadows. You know, I've been focusing more on my own career, so I haven't really done a lot of sideman work. But even when I'm hiring cats as a sideman, I want to give them the respect that they deserve to have. But the main thing is the chemistry that you have between yourself and the artists and the musicians that you hire. Everybody's got to be on the same page. You know, I remember watching a quote from Coach K in Duke. And I'm gonna botch up the quote because I don't remember it, so I'm gonna paraphrase. He said, "You can't punch somebody with one finger." So we say when you're going for the power punch, and he's speaking about the five guys in his on court, it's five. He looks at them as like five fingers, and if everybody's on the same page, going in the same direction at the same time, then that punch is gonna have more validity than somebody just freestyling and just taking jump shots wildly without everybody being on the same page. So, hiring the right cats to support you, you want everybody to just, basically provide that same punch and everybody's going in the same direction. And I think that's the main thing in terms of being a sideman. I think that's the most important thing you could learn. That's the thing that I've learned over the years.
Now, what should you watch out for? Because there's a story of you bouncing a Fender Rhodes down some steps.
Oh, that story, yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, you want to hear that story? Okay. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can encapsulate it in.
I will.
Man, look for.
Thank you for reminding me about that. Yeah, man, that was a deep story. And that was the thing about that. That was my first professional gig as a sideman.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go through horror stories with people, the first thing you say is, "I don't want to be like that guy. Right. Well, I don't want to do it that way." So this is one of those stories where, yeah, I looked up to this cat, man, for years, had his records and everything. And oh man, and when I finally met him, it was just a horror show. I had quit my part-time job. I was working at an insurance company at the time,
mm-hmm.
and I was going to school. I was doing gigs. I think I was playing at a church, and working part-time. So I was all over the map. And so I get this call. It says, "Man, I got this gig for you down in St. Croix with this cat." I was like, "Whoa. Man, I know this dude. He's fantastic. I got all his records, out of this world." So I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." Now I wasn't paying that much, but it gave me a chance to go on the road, do a gig, and be out of town. It was in the Virgin Islands. The weather was like ridiculous.
Right.
So I was like,
right.
Okay, I'll take the hit on pay and have get some sun and enjoy the vibe. So calls back the next day. He says, and I'm green. I am totally green. I know nothing about nothing because, I'm playing in church. I think everybody's fantastic.
Right.
No one can do me any harm. Everything's cool. So the guy calls back and he goes, "Yeah, man, I need you to buy your one-way plane ticket and we'll reimburse when you get down there." And of course, being the nice guy that I am, I'm like, "Okay, no problem." So I pay with credit card, buy the one-way ticket to get down to, I think it was St. Croix. All right, cool. Then the next day he calls. He says, "Yeah, man, I need you to bring your equipment."
Ooh.
Now,
okay.
I'm not a flutist. I'm not a guitarist. I'm a keyboardist. And this is the 1980s. This is 1983. There is no DX7. There is no,
laptop, iPad.
No. There's no rentals. There's none of that. So what do I have? I got a Fender Rhodes.
The big boy.
Yeah, I think I weighed like 130 at the time. The keyboard weighed 110. So it's going to be a problem. So I was like, okay, so I'll do it. So of course the flight, the flight was like $220. The freight was like $110. So it was, I'm $330 in the hole, and the airlines tore my stuff up.
Oh my God!
It tore that little Fender Rhodes up. When I finally got it down, it was so badly beaten out of tune. It
Wow.
So I get down there, and the guy who calls me up for the gig, he introduces me to the artist, and we go into the same room, and the guy goes, "Yeah, man, this is your keyboard player for the week. His name is Bob Baldwin." And the artist looked at my friend, and he said, "What is he doing here?"
Hello.
Oh, this is gonna be deep. I'm about to get my butt kicked down here. I'm green. I'm in the hole. The cat doesn't know me from a hole in the wall. This is gonna be a different kind of first gig. Needless to say, when I got back stateside, I went and got my degree because I was like, I ain't dealing with this foolishness anymore. So anyway, I'm down there for a week. I think I'm supposed to get paid like $200 a day for the gig. But it's free room and board. We're right next to the water. 3 meals a day. Okay, I'm good. $200. I'm good. He didn't even pay that. I got shortchanged on that. First week out, he didn't pay me nothing.
For the week, $200 per diem, nothing.
I didn't get my $200. We're playing like 4 times. It was like $50 a gig, so it wasn't paying that much. Anyway, long story short, because it's like the 1980s. So that's by the way, on that gig I met Marion Meadows. That's how we hooked up.
Oh, word.
The cat ended up owing him so much money. He ended up selling his sound system to pay for his flight ticket to come back home. That's how deep that was. He did my boy wrong. He been playing with him for years. So anyway, a week goes by, no money, and so I approached the cat. Now, here's the other thing about Sidemen.
Mm-hmm.
This cat was staying in a 2-level bungalow, beautiful little spot, and he's got all the space in the world. The Sidemen were staying in this little apartment rental situation. It's like 2 guys to a room. The bathroom's on the outside in the hallway. Everybody's got to go to the bathroom in the hallway. Yeah. So he's making all the money, got the layout, got his own bathroom. We're sharing 2 cats to a room, and it's like maybe 6 of us. So you got 3 rooms, 2 guys in a room.
1 bathroom.
1 bathroom for the whole floor. Yeah, it's like that, man. I think there was a shower. I can't remember.
Oh my God.
But anyway,
there was a lot of water though outside the hotel.
Oh, no doubt. I swam daily. Trust me. Brought a bar of soap and did my thing. So anyway, week goes by. He doesn't pay. I go to his swanky little spot. He says, "Yeah, man, I'm gonna take care of you next week. So anyway, long story short, I have a conversation with the guy who booked the act, who was the owner of the restaurant, and I'm down there. Oh, by the way, this is why I got hip to rum and cokes. That was my rum and coke entree.
Yeah.
And by the 5th day since I didn't have any money, I was having rum and coke for breakfast.
Wow.
It was pretty bad, but thank God I got past that. And I had conch chowder too. Conch chowder was amazing.
Oh yeah.
Oh
wow.
My goodness. Conch chowder and rum and coke, and sometimes I do the rum with the fruit punch.
Man.
But yeah, that was my swag for like a week.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Probably at least twice a day, but the conch chowder 3 times a day. It was great. It's good for my skin too. Between that and water, fantastic. So, long story short, the bartender, who's the owner of the club, says, "Man, the guy's mad because the artist came down. He's been down there like for months. He came down with a completely different band." Long story short, the cat was the way he was running his business was over the top. He would take deposits from the next gig and pay the cats on the current gig. So guess what would happen if the next gig didn't come up? Somebody was going to get stuck with no money.
This is Bernie Madoff type juice.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, he was definitely pyramid scheme number 1, man. Music business pyramid scheme right here. Gone bad.
Wow.
With a whole lot less zeros too,
Wow.
So, long story short, I never get my money, and now I have to leave the island unannounced. because dude, you owe me money. This is getting real country. I'm out of here. I'm not telling you. I'm just going to leave.
Howdy.
So here's the escape. Here's the escape plan. I'm in the room with my roommate. His name's Howard Cloud. He's a bass player. In fact, Howard met a girl down there, stayed there, married. They got 3 kids. They still married today.
Wow.
That was probably the best thing that happened out of this horrific gig. My man found a beautiful wife, and they were married. They've been married to this day.
Wow. Worked for him.
Yeah. He benefited mightily. So Howard's sleeping. It's like 4:00 in the morning. The night before, I get my ticket booked, and I book a taxi. So 4:00 in the morning. Of course, I'm on the second floor, which is about. Here we go with the stairs again. There's at least 20 stairs. Then I had to get the keyboard up the stairs and leave in the hallway overnight.
Gee, man.
So 4:00 in the morning comes. I got to sneak out of my room. My clothes are packed. Stuff is in the bag. I'm out of here. Bye. See you later. Have a nice day. But I got to get the keyboard down the stairs. So here we go. The taxi cat. I said, man, I need you to do me a favor. I need to get the roads down the stairs. So he's like, okay, man, no problem, man, no problem. So he gets to the top of the stairs. We get start carrying the keyboard downstairs, and the guy's right around the 3rd or 4th step. He starts sneezing. I'm like, dude, you can't be sneezing with my keyboard in your hand like that. And he's on the bottom. He's not at the top.
Oh, no.
So he's like, okay, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I got this. So he carries the keyboard again, the Rhodes, and then he sneezes again. And then the Rhodes slides down the stairs. Bam! It makes a huge explosion noise at the end. And so now I got to run downstairs with the cat. We got to grab the keyboard, throw it in the station wagon, and pull off before somebody says something. This is my escape route of my first ever gig. Okay.
Oh my God.
So I get to the airport. I'm back in New York. I'm safe. Everything's good. I get a call back about a week later, man, from the cats. It's like, man, I didn't even know you were gone. They didn't have keyboard player for like the last week, and the show, and the owner, he ended up canceling the show. It was just a big mess because he wasn't paying nobody, man.
Wow.
Anybody got time for that?
I can dig it. So
that was my first gig, and that scared me to go back to college. That's how I went back to college. The next month, I was back in college, bro. Got that degree, man.
Horror stories that
Yeah, that's a pothole you'd like to avoid.
Absolutely. So what we can learn as sidemen is making sure that there's proper chemistry and the person we're working for has integrity.
Yeah, and he has the money to pay you, A, and B, that you have a room and board, food, and your airplane and your airfare covered in advance. You don't pay for the airfare; they cover it for you.
That's excellent.
If it ain't covering for you, and you can't drive there, keep your butt home.
That's excellent advice. That's a good place to transition into roadkill, which is the next segment. So I know you have war stories about traveling, but I think what's essential in the book is your health.
Absolutely.
Keeping yourself on point, right? But what other tidbits can you give us or potholes to avoid when you're traveling with said artist?
Yeah, man. In this day and age, well, in this country, man, this country has an issue with health and wellness. My opinion. This is not the opinion of Jerry B. This is my opinion. I think doctors would rather treat you than to heal you. And by treating you,
I'll join you. That's my opinion too. I'll join.
They'd rather you make many visits to the doctor to get treated for something so they can get paid, as opposed to just healing you outright and being done with it all together, and you not having to go back and spend that extra money and never get fully healed. So I learned it at an early age that if you're not, you got to really be proactive about your health. You can't let the doctor, you can let the doctors tell you what's wrong with you, but you can't necessarily always sign off on how they want to treat your issue.
Exactly.
The name of the game is to heal your body.
Exactly.
So healing your body is the thing. So, but the other thing is the best prevention, the best medicine is prevention.
Absolutely.
So the best thing is to not get sick. So let's avoid the process of getting sick so you have to go get healed.
That's right.
Keep your body tuned up. Exercise, which I don't do enough of, but especially if you don't exercise enough, you have to eat right. You got to avoid the salt. You got to avoid the sugar.
That's right.
You got to avoid the yeast.
That's right.
You got to avoid, for me, you got to avoid the white sugar and the white flour and the white pasta. You got to get rid of that processed stuff that has this full of salt. Otherwise, you're not going to have a long-standing career. So it's a daily battle, man, because even at home, you know, I'm constantly looking at labels like, man, this stuff is like full of salt. I gotta stop eating it.
Right.
You gotta stop taking. You have to deviate from what is good to your tongue.
Mm-hmm.
My great aunt used to always tell me, everything that tastes good is not good for you.
That's it.
You know, and so once
Express actually made a song out of that, you know.
Wow.
Back in the 70s. BT Express, you remember them? What's
good
good to you ain't always good for you.
There you go. There you go. You know, so you always got to fight the temptation of the flesh, you know, which comes down to you having a desire to eat something that tastes good that's not good for you. So you've got to really establish a precedence about not eating things that are not good for you.
Absolutely. And there are also other temptations to avoid on the road as well. I remember when Sound Doctrine started traveling, we had a keyboard player, man. He would have an 8x10 of it, and he played keyboards, and he had the Rhodes. He would have an 8x10 picture of his family. He put it on. Boom, right up there.
Nice.
Yeah, we only had one dude who was single. Everybody else was married, and we just ran constant interference for each other just to keep everything on point. Because it's not just the food. There's other temptations that will.
Of course, and of course, I know a very popular singer who smokes. You might want to avoid smoking if you're a singer.
It's oxymoron, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like, don't you know them cigarettes are gonna kill you one day? Did you read the label? What
about the sax player who smokes? That's another one.
Oh yeah, that could be detrimental. That could be detrimental. So you know, those are things on the road you want to try to avoid. You know, those. I mean, I've so many sidemen I hear about that die of heart attack and heart issues, and you know, it's
high blood pressure, high cholesterol, pressure,
diabetes, the whole thing, man. It's like you have to just tell your tongue to say no.
Exactly.
Say no to your tongue. Step away from the table, and no one will get hurt.
That's absolutely right. So tell me about Santa Clauses. I thought that was a great chapter in the last chapter. I mean, you talk about publishing, you talk about artist royalties, different contracts to look forward. It's a very extensive book, very well put together, 5 stars. But the clauses, man, talk about the clauses.
Man, there's so many clauses that you got to watch out for.
Yeah.
One of the big clauses that I signed one time, and because of it, I fired my manager. As soon as I realized what I did, I got rid of him, because he's the one who told me to sign the contract. So somebody had to take the fall, so it had to be him. Right. One was regarding I had a deal where artist royalties were coming in, but I also had publishing money coming in, which is called mechanicals. Mm-hmm. And for anybody that doesn't know what mechanicals is, briefly, it's for every we'll just limit this song to 5 minutes. Anything under 5 minutes, the writers are entitled to 9.1 cents of each sale of that record, either a digital download or a physical sale or a album download. whatever that accumulation is. If you wrote 100% wrote a tune, you're entitled to 9.1 cents of royalty for every record sold. So I had a deal where I got a budget to do the record, and then I was receiving royalty money from mechanicals. And so there was a contract. There was something in the contract that said that any money that was not attained, that was not recouped on the artist side, can then be collected from the publishing side. So it's called cross collateralization. Yeah. So you got to make sure that your contract does not have a cross collateralization clause, which means if you don't have that, that means whatever happens on the artist side, that's its own economic sphere.
Correct.
And then you still got your publishing coming from sale one, which you're entitled to. Because the way the record contracts are written anyway, man, you're not going to see any money on the back end anyway, most of the time. They set those things up. That is the Ponzi scheme of a lifetime right there.
Absolutely.
We could spend a whole hour just talking about royalties and how artists don't get their money, and I could outline why. So we have to set up another one for that one.
Definitely.
That's just one clause, just the cross collateralization. Mm-hmm. And now you got the whole streaming thing in, which is going on, and with digital downloads being like taking a huge hit, because right now 75% of my check is streaming revenue.
Sure.
Nobody's buying. Everybody's streaming. Everybody's YouTubing. Nobody's listening, and nobody's downloading anything. So, if you don't have something in your contract that says you're entitled to your streaming revenues, and making sure you're getting a nice piece of that, because that doesn't cost any money for them to generate the stream. I mean, there might be some marketing dollars behind it, but the record companies are making out like a bandit right now. And
do you know they
blind to what's going on with that?
Do you know they still, some contracts from major labels still have breakage clauses? What's a breakage in a stream? That's old 1960s when they were shipping records to the rack jobbers, and they had that breakage thing in it. But some contracts still have that today, 2019.
Right. And some of them still have, even on digital, they still have they have reserves.
It's nuts.
How are you gonna reserve a digital download?
You can't do it.
Nobody refunding no digital download money. So why are you reserving 25% of my money for 18 months from digital revenue? It's gangster, man.
It is.
But
absolutely.
But if you're not reading your contracts, if you I don't know, if you have someone else reading them on your behalf and you don't know what you're reading, you don't know what you're signing, man, you're gonna get
taken
out here, brother. And there's a lot of people out here getting bamboozled. Absolutely. The fact that they don't own the masters in the first place is mistake number one.
Yeah.
Then mistake number two, the way they have the contract written, they have it set up where they're not going to get any money on the back end. And so you are back to, like we said last episode, you're back to having to get in a car or get on a plane and do a gig. That's your only source of revenue, because you gave all the revenue away to your label.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Even the smaller ones with the what do they call them, 360 deals, 60-degree deals.
Those are the worst.
You know, where they want everything. They even want a portion of your performance. Wherever you show up, we get some.
Yep. And if they place your song on a jingle and that with a national corporation, national commercial, they want a piece of that too. So they want your publishing money, they want your gig money, they want your performance money. Man, that is the ultimate gangster move right there.
It's called slavery, man. Which was abolished, if I remember correctly, but
about 400 years ago, right? Give or take.
About then, yeah. But I tell you what, when you look at some of these deals, and there was even one, I shouldn't name the company, but usually most independent artists use them. It's a big, huge company, and they had just ended a campaign called a total monetization package. Monetization package for $49. But they want your publishing. They want to do this for you. They want the YouTube money. I mean, it's just crazy. Wow. It's a Silicon Valley deal. And I stay out of it. But if you don't know, if you think, wow, that's it, because most musicians still have the mentality that we make the music, let somebody else run the business. But that's not an EntreMusician position. The EntreMusician takes care of the business.
Well, as you say that, going back to our last episode, my father was like, you got to keep the creative and the analytical right in the middle. You can't be so creative that you can't tie your own shoes.
Right.
And you can't be so over analytical and not be creative. You got to have it right down the middle if you're going to be an artist. You have to have the creative side. You got to have the analytical side. So
Absolutely.
you really have to you have to analyze every aspect of your career, every aspect of the business that you're in. You got to know the business.
Absolutely.
You have to understand the nuances of business. When people look at the music business, they look at music like 90% and business 10%.
Sure.
They really should look at it as the business of music. If they look at it as the business of music, then they would put more emphasis on the business piece than the musical piece.
Definitely.
You got to have it right down the middle, man. Otherwise, you're gonna get tossed in the lake somewhere, man.
You're absolutely right. Now, since you're on that streaming hit, let's talk about radio versus streaming.
Mm-hmm. Well, over the last 2 years, people have stopped downloading. The behavior of the consumer now is that people gotten lazy. And now, Pandora and Spotify, Apple Music came into fruition in 2015. I never forget, Mellow Wonder came out, I believe it was June of 2015, and Apple Music came out like the month after. And then my digital download sales went bloop, because for the first 90 days, you recall, Apple Music was not billing people. It was free service.
Sure.
So for 90 days of your time having the service, you're not paying for the service, which means if you're not paying for the service,
you're not paying for the music.
Subscription-based service, the artist is not getting paid either. So that was a big chunk. That was really 2015 was really the beginning of the blows to the head to the artists when it came to streaming. And of course, Pandora and Spotify are now, doing their thing.
Right.
And now 75% of the industry revenue is from streaming now. Whereas, and 25% is digital, is downloads, sales, which includes digital, physical, and album.
Correct.
And right now, album sales literally are almost the same sales number as CD sales. So CD sales are going down, digital downloads are going down, and album sales, physical vinyl is kind of holding that number. If that number wasn't there, it'd be more like 88-12.
Right.
So the streaming thing is really taken off. And so if you don't understand how streaming works, if you're underexposed in the streaming field, then you're missing out on some revenue. So in fact, if half of your money is from streaming and the other half is from digital downloads, you're missing out on a lot of money, because you should be 75-25 streaming to downloads.
Sure.
So I think not enough people are really paying attention to that now yet, but I think they will over the next several months.
What do you think is happening to radio with more people moving toward Spotify, as far as their listening preference? It's a $9.99 buffet, all you can eat is, a lot of composers. I mean, a buffet as far as the fan is concerned,
Sure.
Whatever I want, $9.99 a month is coming out like Netflix, whatever. But what I'm saying is, with radio, at least there was a little bit of money that was coming from your PRO because your song was charting and it was playing on the air. But what do you see that seesaw? Is that more in line with the streaming and radio is going down, or what?
For Smooth, there's not. In 2008, that's when the commercial smooth jazz revenues really took a hit, because I think like 30 stations in 2 years just vanished overnight. Back then, that was the real revenue getting airplay. You can get 2,000 spins a week in that format and make a nice piece of money. Now if you get 250 spins, you're doing good.
Wow.
So the numbers are totally different. But radio versus streaming, I think radio is still important, because if you have a radio programmer that's knowledgeable of the music, and they can share some of those storylines, those insights that a streaming station can't do, because all you're going to do in streaming is just you're being fed a stream of music based on something that you like, but there's no one's telling you what's behind the record.
Sure.
Nobody's telling you who's on the record. Nobody's telling you who produced the record, and it's not even telling you what the artist plays. You almost have to figure it out yourself, you know. So the radio is still a very important part, but I think radio programmers have to really do a lot more in terms of educating their listeners so they can keep them tuned in. So that's what New Urban Jazz is about. I talk about, you know, all the records that I play, who's on the records, and some storylines behind it. And I think that's what's keeping the popularity of the show intact.
So with respect to radio, then, in regards to the spins from 2,000 to 250, which is a huge drop.
Yeah,
how important is having a good radio promoter on your side as an independent?
That's definitely important, because you want to make sure that if you have a record out, that that the people at radio have your record. So it's having radio promotion is important, because an artist does not have time to call, I think,
250 stations.
Yeah, you know, there's no way you're gonna have enough time in a week, in a day, in a month to call every station and follow up to see if they got the record. So the radio promoter is the radio promoter is very important to have that intact, because then they're gonna help promote your music, and they're gonna do the follow up every week and give you a report, and that's what you need.
Mm-hmm. Well, one day I'll ask you to recommend a few. I mean, we've worked with some, obviously, but
there's not a lot smooth. There's not a lot smooth right now. Maybe like 3 or 4, and we'll talk about it offline.
Gotcha.
But the other thing that you want to do is to get your music on as many playlists as possible in the streaming world. Mm-hmm. Everyone who runs a playlist, you could almost look at them as a program director. They're the ones who are controlling the playlist. And depending on how popular that playlist is, that's the playlist you want to be on. You want to be on the playlist that has 15,000 subscribers or listeners or followers. So that when they play your song, 15,000 people are on it, and then those people will start looking for your other catalog. And that's why it's important to have catalog.
Right.
A lot of people think they can just, get paid
one or two songs,
or 1 or 2 albums, and it's just not going to happen. Not in this genre. That happens in the pop and R&B field and the rap field. You can make a lot of money off of one tune in the pop, jazz, and pop and R&B field. Yeah. But in jazz, it's really all about catalog. And what you want people to do is when they get hip to one of your tunes, that when they start looking for you, that they have some more music to pull down that you've done. And for me, I'm fortunate because I've got 30 records.
Word.
So you can listen to my catalog from Florida and drive to Canada, and it still would be enough time.
I tried to do that going to Baltimore once.
From Ohio?
Right, from Ohio. So yeah, it was on.
That's about 4 albums.
Yeah, that's on. So I get it, and catalog is absolutely king. Mm-hmm. Keep making the music. I mean, I feel that we're in an interesting place as a music industry, as artists, but the thing is, and your book sums it up very well, and that's get up, keep going, make sure that you're not depriving people of your gift because of some of the landmines that are out there.
Exactly.
Plan accordingly.
Yes.
Listen to those who have gone on before. Learn all you can, but by all means, keep plugging away and doing what God puts you on the earth to do.
No doubt. You don't want to waste your talent because you got your leg blown up walking down the wrong street. So
absolutely,
stay away from certain streets. Stay away from certain people. Yeah. Surround yourself with people that know, trust, and care about you, and people that you trust. In reverse, it's got to happen. It's got to be the same thing in reverse. The trust, the care, the love. When you surround yourself with those kinds of people, then you're gonna have, and you on top of your business, you're gonna have some success in the career, and you can't give up. You can't take one blow to the head and then go down for 3 years.
Absolutely.
You got to get back up and you got to keep on doing it. Because I mean, listen, everybody's had disappointments in this journey. Yeah. There isn't an artist that I know that has not had some kind of, you know, experience either inside the industry or something personal in their life.
Yeah,
you've got to overcome the negative things that have happened to you, and you got to use your inner fortitude to pick yourself back up and stay on point. Stay on your mission, man. Don't ever fall off your mission.
Praise God. That's excellent advice. That's why there's going to be a 3rd, 4th, 5th, 12th interview with this wonderful gentleman. This is Bob Baldwin. Definitely go to bobbaldwin.com. His entire story is up there. You definitely want to go to Amazon. Get ready. Pre-order the book. Get the ebook while you're waiting for it. It's an excellent read. Listen to his music if you're traveling from Ohio to California, because it'll keep you there, yo. And definitely check out newurbanjazz.com. This is incredible, Bob Baldwin. We appreciate you, sir. My name is Jerry B. I am the EntreMusician, and so are you. We will see you next time.
My brothers.
This has been an encore presentation of the EntreMusician. Join us at theentremusician.com.